goodness. Okay. All right, people. All right, people. Are you ready? It's Tuesday, Tuesday, Tuesday. The day that time forgot. Yes, it is Tuesday. It's a Tuesday, November the 15th. Can you believe we're halfway through November? I remember wondering where September went. That was about a week and a half ago. So, yeah, you don't try to tell me time isn't going. It is. You know what I'm saying? Thanks, Ma. Rick Lewis has got snow. Rick Lewis got 18 inches of snow already up there in Winthrop. Yeah. Laurie said, I did the grandma sleep on the couch already. Oh, so you can stay up for poetry break. What a great idea. You take the afternoon nap so that you got a little something for bringing to the poetry break. Laurie, I salute you. I more than salute you. I toast you. Laurie Trout, ladies and gentlemen, the bringer of the Tuesday, the day Bill takes two shots. But Laurie better be taking them too, and Jason better be taking them too. Yeah. And a wheat chaser. There you go. Okay, where are we at? I got to tell you, mailbag, Zipski. Zipski in the mailbag. Now, I'm not going to complain because I'm feeling like it's going to be a short show tonight. The hand is having some back trouble, and I'm just always in trouble of one kind or another. Oldmanhood. You see, I've been reviewing Oldmanhood. It's not pretty, people. It's not pretty. You know, picking out the ones to keep and the ones to. I mean, I'm going to keep them all, but the rejects are, and the acceptable ones are kind of, you know. What are you going to do? Mary Peck is in the house. Hayden Reese is here. Hey, you guys. Mary. I'm going to call you up. I'm going to call you up. Hayden, I'm going to call you up, too. Darn it. Okay, Oldmanhood. We're going to start with Oldmanhood and then move on to real poetry. Real poetry. Got some real poetry for you tonight. Right. Okay. I don't know if I'm even going to read that one. That one seems kind of, oh, I don't know. What? Something. Not really. Okay, so I got like 4 of these. Well, maybe I'll read that one. Just so there'll be 5. So that I can feel like I'm prolific. I'm not going to fool anybody. Okay, Oldmanhood, ladies and gentlemen. Now, as you know, Oldmanhood is, you know, it's this kind of thing. To the dire grays of early sunset. They say your shorter days would end if we stopped falling back, but can they really slow the roll of the earth? In this morning's dark, I heard distant coyotes calling, back and forth across the moon, past the reach of my gaping eyes. I go home to hot soup and thick blankets. Let the darkness swallow me. I'm ready to face the uphill grades and tripping roots that shower down on Oldmanhood. It's mysterious rain, and they say it might stop or keep warming until it scorches us. Night after night it drums on the window glass, and I am lulled by its jazz. Oldmanhood won't surrender its cool seasons until the planet demands it. That's kind of where I'm at with this. It's all kind of, I don't know. Yes, indeed, says the hand. Read Jim Harrison. Hayden has discovered Jim Harrison. You probably already knew about Jim Harrison. You probably knew about Jim Harrison before I did. You're connected to those kinds of things. Okay, I'll read Jim Harrison. Can I read some of the Oldmanhood first? A note of grace to the sunny afternoon. You have warmed me through windows because it is 40 degrees out there and a fair breeze blows down from the north. I walked with you yesterday in that cold 37 degrees, and my 65-year-old bones and muscles complained for the first 15 minutes before they warmed to the rout. Trees or stumps of trees mark the way. We are old friends now in our slow approach to living. No need to hurry in Oldmanhood or old treehood. We both sprang from seeds and were limber, rubbery, took the hits and bounced back. Now we are stiffer, gnarled, and wary. me and the trees, student and teachers, trunk and branch, withering leaf under nourishing sun. I just read them, I don't explain them. There you go. Dead crow on the trail this morning. Don't think I knew him. Something got him. He's been roughed up pretty good. Big gash around the throat, like his attacker had his whole head in its mouth. The world is tilting in a funny and familiar way here in Oldmanhood. For a couple days in a row now, things haven't looked as bleak as the pundits said they would. And so there's a lot of breathing going on, as if we're all trying to catch up. Trillions of brain cells crying from the beyond. There are many more dead crows that we never see. I don't think there's a committee here in Oldmanhood charged with sweeping them away before we do. I think that crows prefer to pass surrounded by their friends and loved ones like we do. I'm not yet close enough to the crows to know. But they behave like they're at least as smart as us. So why not imagine them fully immersed in it, like we wish we were? Hope to make progress before the time when only a stain remains. I know what you're saying. You're saying, cheer up a little, Bill. Just a little. Okay, here we go. To the morning dusk. Crows storming in from their rookery in Bothell. Faint train whistle up from the beach. The carved air of early winter, gentle as a bead, quiet as mist. I'd like to lick up that wetness like a lover, but I am drained of my own juice, and the brilliant moon intimidates me as it fades, like the beauty of youth. Crows blacken the sky, their thunder a mawkish staccato, their wings the edges of wind-blown rain clouds. Then we each notice the colors of sunrise. This is the one I was going to skip, but I'll finish with this one tonight. Finish Oldmanhood at least. The rest is silence. The silence is rest. Where the winds blow, I go. Through the diagonal verses of Berryman, to the fresh stumps of Oldmanhood, a sewer runs through it, reflected under fall's dazzling sun. I am a hobo of morning, crossing the headlit streets in thin shoes, waving a flag at the gawking commuters, a retiree and every one of these. For I have lived more lives than any of them sees, and still awaken to dizzy, fresh rewards. Now I am a sword at the waist of disgrace. I don't know what hordes are roaring their gist amid the mist. We are wind and grist together, where the pawns of poplars stand along the alleyways of our bodies and embraces strewn among the lesser brands. I don't know. It's odd. But it's been an odd week, so it makes sense that there would be odd bits of Oldmanhood floating around. Look what I got in the mail today. That's right. This guy, I got to tell you, Billy Collins, slow down a little, will you? Yeah, he's over 80 years old. I mean, slow down. You don't need to put out a book every year, do you? I'm sorry. This is a book of short poems. Now, we were looking at the really short poems of A.R. Ammons a couple of weeks ago. I barely cracked that book, and then this one arrives. How am I supposed to keep up? I can't keep up. I've got to stop buying poetry books. Help me. Anyway, what can you do? What can you do? So these are short. So let's try a few just to see what we think. The Naked Eye. There was no eyelid to cover the naked eye, so she covered herself with some scenery. A meadow she liked to look at when the other eye wasn't looking. Naked Eye. Yeah. The Mohawk Diner, 3 a.m. Was that revolving cake stand, or the Mohawk Diner, 3 a.m., has that revolving cake stand always been there? Or did some men install it while you and I sat here at the counter not saying anything? The Mohawk Diner, 3 a.m. Has that revolving cake stand always been there, or did some men install it while you and I sat here at the counter not saying anything? Dog. When she runs in her sleep, eyelids twitching, legs churning sideways on the floor, I wonder if she's chasing a squirrel or being chased by an angry farmer with a rake. Yeah. Look, this is called. The morning lake was smooth as a mirror. A few angels were even seen flying down just after dawn to check themselves out. Last to leave the party. In your white dress, you revolved around me like the moon, and like the earth, I was spinning, tilted back on my own axis. I have a feeling that some of these are going to strike me later. I'm going to be like, oh, this one. This one I got right away. It's called carbon dating. Carbon dating. He tried it once as a last resort, but most of the women were 1,000,000 years old. Carbon dating. He tried it once as a last resort, but most of the women were 1,000,000 years old. I'm sorry. Sometimes, yeah. Mute potato. Before introducing it to a pot of boiling water, I caught a medium-sized Idaho potato staring up at me with several of its many eyes. Spooky. So this is Billy Collins, brand new, just came today. Oh, he's got a blurb on the back from Paul Simon. See, this is like every, poetry dream of mine come true. To have a blurb on a book from Paul Simon. Come on. Oh, time to move on. Billy gets enough attention, don't you think? Let's try somebody a little different. This one. Gregory Dunne is his name. You're going to need to watch for this guy. This guy is a powerhouse. My friend Paul Julich, who was one of the Rocks boys that I was over in Spokane with a few weeks back, he was reading from this book at that encounter. Now, Gregory Dunne is somebody that Paul met at the Zen Center that he goes to here in Seattle. And Gregory Dunne has lived in Japan for many years, but Paul knew him as a local guy. So there you go. Gregory Dunne. You don't have to get far into this book to fall in love with Gregory Dunne. The second poem in the book is called Seed Trees. Seed Trees, for William Stafford, in memory. His wife spoke of his readiness to drop anything at a moment's notice, his readiness to run and help a neighbor who might have given him a call. His response was always the same. Be right there. Imagine the presence of mind, so prepared as that, to say whatever I am doing now can wait until I see about you first. Maybe he was a genius, as Jonathan Holden said, a man who made his poems with pleasure and ease. But her quivering voice tells me he was also someone who understood how many a poem remains because it was left along the way unwritten, to do its work in time the way a logger might plant the finest trees by leaving one behind, the tallest, strongest one, to seed the forest back again alive. I'm going to read that again. Seed trees, for William Stafford in memory. His wife spoke of his readiness to drop anything at a moment's notice, his readiness to run and help a neighbor who might have given him a call. His response was always the same: be right there. Imagine the presence of mind, so prepared as that, to say whatever I am doing now can wait until I see about you first. Maybe he was a genius, as Jonathan Holden said, a man who made his poems with pleasure and ease. But her quavering voice tells me he was also someone who understood how many a poem remains because it was left along the way unwritten, to do its work in time the way a logger might plant the finest trees by leaving one behind, the tallest, strongest one, to seed the forest back again alive. Yeah, Gregory Dunne. I just love this book, and I've just cracked it. Like I say, I read like the first 10 poems, and then I read them for you guys. So that's that. Sorry. The hand, ladies and gentlemen, the hand. Are you okay, hand? You look the hand looks a little fluttery. Oh, but she smells so good. The hand smells so good. I'm sorry you're not feeling tip-top tonight. Yeah. Theo from the Couth is here. Theo, stick around. Janine Boggs is here. Val Sanford. John Gorski's in the house. Who else? Hayden Reese, Holly Tuttle, and Kim Nelson. Sandra Swayze. Hey, Sandy. Where's Sandy? Oh, I'm so glad she's here. Rick Lewis is here. Mary Pekka, Mark Kenny, Lori Trout, Jamie Turner, Patsy Kent. Patsy? Hey! How come Mr. Tim never joins us? Too cool for poetry. You got it, Patsy. First try. He's just too cool. He's too cool. What can I say? You know, he was a rock and roll drummer. Right? Yeah. He's a rock and roll guy. Too busy learning the next Led Zeppelin cover tune to hang out with poetry guys. Yeah. So, here we go. What's next? Gregory Dunne. We're still with Gregory Dunne. The book is called Otherwise, and it's published by Isobar Press. And they do have a website. Isobar is I-S-O-B-A-R press.com. Gregory Dunne is the name. Earl's Sauna, this is called. He never talked about wanting anything. He talked about his garden, his bees. But if you sat in his sauna on a wintry afternoon, a whole world would open up, and you would see his words spin into desire as snow fell past the window. You'd learn to say the fire's name was yours, learn to take the heat into your lungs past words, and dream trees rooting down, bending above. You'd learn to open your mouth wide as a baby bird crying its first song. You'd take that song and live a long time. It would open your life the way fire opens the tongue inside a log. Listen, and you hear it still, the breathing and all the hunger going up with it. You see, Gregory Dunne. One more from Gregory Dunne, okay? I'm going to read that one again, though, first. Earl's Sauna. He never talked about wanting anything. He talked about his garden, his bees. But if you sat in his sauna on a wintry afternoon, a whole world would open up, and you would see his words spin into desire as snow fell past the window. You'd learn to say the fire's name was yours. Learn to take the heat into your lungs past words and dream trees rooting down, bending above. You'd learn to open your mouth wide as a baby bird crying its first song. You'd take that song and live a long time. It would open your life the way fire opens the tongue inside a log. Listen, and you hear it still, the breathing and all that hunger going up with it. Yeah, Bubba. Gregory Dunne. Thank you, Paul Julich, for bringing Gregory Dunne into my life. One more. This is called At 20. They began to dream beyond the rushing home each day, to hurry off to bed and sleep, only to rise at dawn and again begin the monotonous labor of pouring concrete or dragging heavy boards from off the beds of semi-tractor trailers, trucks, plywood, 6-foot sheets hoisted and carried 50 yards to footings poured the day before, foundations for second homes in Idaho. So one evening after work, they drove their company trucks into the Payette forest to walk a while amid the sound of wind and falling leaves, to walk along a ledge and find a path to carry them into the sulfur springs the Nez Perce had used to rejuvenate themselves and turn their lives outward into the opening of dreams. Here, without hesitation or need to talk, the laborers unbuttoned their shirts and blouses. They unzipped their concrete-splattered jeans and slipped into the steaming pools. And when they returned to work the following day, it was, as some had feared, a fellow employee, having seen them the night before pulling off the road away into the mountains, forced them now to admit their wayward indiscretions. Yes, they had broken rules, had used the trucks for impermissible purposes, and now would walk home bereft of jobs. But oh, the gladness in their legs to remember their bodies unburdened and dripping with light, to see again the stream unfurl around them as they stood from the water and began to gather their clothing, shirts and blouses grown into trumpet lilies, spilling from their arms as they planted their feet and tramped away into a night of stars, completely drenched. I gotta read that again. I didn't do very well. My tongue is tripping over my teeth tonight. Sorry. I don't mean it. Maybe what I need is... At 20, by Gregory Dunne. At 20, they began to dream beyond the rushing home each day, to hurry off to bed and sleep, only to rise at dawn and again begin the monotonous labor of pouring concrete or dragging heavy boards from off the beds of semi-tractor trailer trucks, plywood, 6-foot sheets hoisted and carried 50 yards to footings poured the day before, foundations for second homes in Idaho. So, one evening after work, they drove their company trucks into the Payette forest to walk a while amid the sound of wind and falling leaves, to walk along a ledge and find a path to carry them into the sulfur springs the Nez Perce had used to rejuvenate themselves and turn their lives outward into the opening of dreams. Here, without hesitation or need to talk, the laborers unbuttoned their shirts and blouses. They unzipped their concrete-splattered jeans and slipped into the steaming pools. And when they returned to work the following day, it was as some had feared. A fellow employee, having seen them the night before pulling off the road away into the mountains, forced them now to admit their wayward indiscretions. Yes, they had broken rules, had used the trucks for impermissible purposes, and now would walk home bereft of jobs. But oh, the gladness in their legs to remember their bodies unburdened and dripping with light, to see again the steam unfurl around them as they stood from the water and began to gather their clothing. Shirts and blouses grown into trumpet lilies, spilling from their arms as they planted their feet and tramped away into a night of stars, completely drenched. There you go. That's as far as I've gotten into this book. Gregory Dunne, Otherwise, it's called. Yeah. Yeah, my friends. Yes, indeed. Indeedy do. Indeedy don't. Yes. Now, some night soon, and this is for Theo, I'm going to spend an evening reading Krista Casey poems, because it's hard to read just a couple of them. I want to read a bunch. Krista Casey, local poet, that Theo introduced me to, along with several others, along with many others. Theo is like, he's like my poetry guru. My guru of local poets, who I was not that familiar with. You know, Leslie Freed being one. We read some Leslie Freed last week, last week, and then the last time we had met, we started reading some Leslie Freed. But I want to read, this is another book that Theo turned me on to. Laurie Bauner. It's called Wrong, published by Cherry Grove Collections. Laurie Bauner. She did the cover art, too. Laurie did. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see if there's some biographical information about Laurie in here. Laurie Bauner is the author of 5 previous books of poetry. See, I'm behind. Her first 3 were published by Owl Creek Press, and her 4th by Orcus's Press. Her most recent book, All This Could Be Yours, was published by Cherry Grove Collections in 2006. Her poetry has appeared in American Poetry Review, Poetry Northwest, Georgia Review, The Nation, The New Republic, and Field, among many other magazines. So she's been published in major publications. Laurie Bauner is her name. So I'm going to read a couple of hers because they're good. Yeah. This one is called Glass Houses, and this is for Louise Joy Brown, who I think, is that the same woman who teaches at Hugo House? I think so. Glass Houses. The world was made of white aprons, people the shape of guitars, grimaces from funhouse mirrors, a mother more cloud than human. In the lab I was still soup, dividing. My supposed parents were parasols hovering, the dark rooms of their bodies empty, still vacant. Somewhere I hoped for colorful veins, limbs swelling with vibrancy, snorting with life, my very own shadows. An ivy plant was reaching through air toward me. I couldn't scream. Someday there would be trampolines and trucks and balls that could make my heart go pitter-patter. Everything was theirs. My mother and father watching television, their silhouettes large in the moth light. The program said that destiny was so small it could fit in a palm. I didn't like the way I could slide out of them and then slide back in. Their desperation, thrown like rocks. But then there was the world, hungry, bloody, and breathing, waiting. Glass Houses by Laurie Bauner. The world was made of white aprons, people the shape of guitars, grimaces from funhouse mirrors, a mother more cloud than human. In the lab I was still soup, dividing. My supposed parents were parasols hovering, the dark rooms of their bodies empty, still vacant. Somewhere I hoped for colorful veins, limbs swelling with vibrancy, snorting with life, my very own shadows. An ivy plant was reaching through air toward me. I couldn't scream. Someday. Someday there would be trampolines and trucks and balls that could make my heart go pitter-patter. Everything was theirs. My mother and father watching television, their silhouettes large in the moth light. The program said that destiny was so small it could fit in a palm. I didn't like the way I could slide out of them and then slide back in. Their desperation, thrown like rocks. But then there was the world, hungry, bloody, and breathing, waiting. Yeah. One more from Laurie Bauner. Then I think I need to move to Jim Harrison, apparently. Yes. Hayden says, yes, drink more. Thank you. Laurie Bauner. All talk, this is called. I'm just cracking these books. It's like I don't have enough time in the week to do more than just crack the surface of these. And then I feel like the next week I need to move on to someone else. I need to start diving deeper. Just me talking. All talk. My apology is a ghostly accident. Words slipping out remind me of a moon on an unlikely sea. See what you want, but what's heard is a wet confession. I didn't do what you think I did. Your body is pale, perforated landscape that expects so little. I did something different. I slid past bad weather, collided. Trees with their sad rustling was one example. I don't know what else to do. Intention is a lonely leaf that happens and happens. Yeah, this is thick. All talk. My apology is a ghostly accident. Words slipping out remind me of a moon on an unlikely sea. See what you want, but what's heard is a wet confession. I didn't do what you think I did. Your body is pale. Your body is a pale, perforated landscape that expects so little. I did something different. I slid past bad weather, collided. Trees with their sad rustling was one example. I don't know what else to do. Intention is a lonely leaf that happens and happens. That's as far as I've gotten into Laurie Bauner. Yeah. Before I go to, where's Jim? I gotta read some Jim because Holy Tuttle wants some Jim. I hope it's okay if I read from In Search of Small Gods. I'll be able to find something in there. But first, I'd like to read some Jack Hirschman. Jack Hirschman was a very powerful presence in my poetic life, probably back in the 90s. Late 80s, early 90s. I met Jack Hirschman, or I saw Jack Hirschman read when I was in San Francisco back in 1982. And when I went back there subsequently, and I've only been back 2 or 3 times since 82, I would run into Jack every time. And I introduced myself to him. I was sending him my little poetry books that I was putting together, you know, going to Kinko's and printing off a bunch and selling them from the stage at my gigs and stuff. These books of poems that I was doing. But I would send them to Jack with a letter. Somehow, I think first I wrote to him through one of his publishers. Then he wrote back and gave me his own P.O. box, which I've since lost. Jack has since passed. But he was the Poet Laureate of San Francisco for several years, and he was just a presence in North Beach. That's where he lived, in North Beach, just where you would expect him to live. And he was everything you expected him to be. But he was a committed communist. There's a good documentary about Jack Hirschman on YouTube. It's called Red Poet. If you're interested in Jack, you can look him up there. He was very influential in my early life as a poet. He encouraged me. And, you get a little bit of encouragement goes a long way when you're struggling to find a voice. I don't care about any of that anymore, but at that time I did. So, little Jack Hirschman. This is from his book, The Bottom Line. Self-portrait. Sitting on a factory wall ledge, waiting for a bus at night, the sense of my jacket on me, the feel of my face, American man. It's cold. Lighting a cigarette, feeling my brow, not with my hand, but feeling it, the lines in it, wind furrowed and every day, relative to, after all, the wheels rolling by, the factory, nights like this one, helping a friend, or tumbled out in the hair of hooch. How many like myself? The dark car passing by, hey, yo, the booming double Nielsen freight, hey, yo, full face, way up there, in a dark outskirt, equal. Let's try that again. Self-portrait. Sitting on a factory wall ledge, waiting for a bus at night, the sense of my jacket on me, the feel of my face, American, man, it's cold, lighting a cigarette, feeling my brow, not with my hand, but feeling it, the lines in it, wind furrowed and every day, relative to, after all, the wheels rolling by, the factory, nights like this one, helping a friend, or tumbled out of the hair of hooch. How many like myself? The dark car passing by, hey, yo, the booming double Nielsen freight, hey, yo, full face, way up there, in a dark outskirt, equal. I don't know, man. It's all... Jack was a believer in the spontaneous first thought, best thought. He encouraged me to concentrate on my poems with the shorter lines, which surprised me, because I was trying to be Richard Hugo back then, writing the long, kind of Whitmanic lines. He liked my shorter lined poems, which was an interesting perspective to get at that time. I was probably in my 30s, late 30s, maybe early 40s. And I've been writing poetry since I was like 8 or 9 years old. I started writing poetry before I started writing songs, although I had no idea what I was doing, until I was 19, until I got to college. I found out what I was doing. Found out what I was already doing. That's an interesting way of finding it out. I'll read one more from Jack, then we'll move on to Jim for Holly. The Portrait, this is called. You were always water to me, this vessel, this boat of a body full of syllables. From you who, accidentally in the sense of chance, in the French sense of hasard, gave me your life to care for, a life I care for, fashioned from its immense stillness, the noise of propaganda, this madness but clear sailing of thirst for your repose. A love in many places, forming a chin, many lenses forming a pair of eyes, many forms of hair forming a form of hair, whose silence makes others speak, who exist outside of my hearing you. I am sick of hearing a world call you shit, call you bad, call you weird, call you devil, call you God. I live with you eternally. When I see face inside my face, it is yours. When I smash the barriers of usury and vice, of all the mechanisms of capital and the inventions of steel used to defend them, When I fill with comrades and streets, wires and volts of religious creeds, it is you who see me through the struggle to feel your form again. Face, communist face, that never will I sell to the machinery of woe. Face I will go to my grave with, simple face, face of nature, style of a century artificed and complex, whose journey is to face the face of pure confrontation within, to be destroyed into poem again and again by it, to be reborn with the millions of other red faces. Face of my hand sweat, face I defend against the violence of time, of history kissed in prisons of thighs, in prosodies of wires, diplomacies, face which multiplies from the one, from the bipolar forms of bridgings and abdominal cries, face of chance I have rendered eternally revolutionary, turning from everything backward, revisionist, merely historical, to keep me, no matter how many changes of music, of records, of lovers, of streetcars, of conversions to religions, of whirligig lies. Read with you as a breath, for which there is no breathing but everything fills with lung, no movement but everything is in motion, and what it names is the stillness, the silence, from which will emerge the minutiae and grandiosity of these dialects of the tribe it purifies, with every thought of its resolution and its revolution as the word. Portrait, that's called. The Portrait. Jack Hirschman, worth looking into. He goes all over the world. He goes all over the world in his imagination and in real life, too. Okay. A couple of more here, and then I'm going to let you go. What do we got? 7:42. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Here we go. Age 69. This is from In Search of Small Gods by Jim Harrison. Age 69. I keep waiting without knowing what I'm waiting for. I saw the setting moon at dawn roll over the mountain and perhaps into the dragon's mouth until tomorrow evening. There is this circle I walk that I have learned to love. I hope one day to be a spiral, but to the birds I'm a circle. 1,000 Spaniards died looking for a gold in a swamp when it was in the mountains in clear sight beyond. Here, though, on local earth, my heart is at rest as a groundling, letting my mind take flight as it will, no longer waiting for good or bad news. Often lately, the night is a cold maw, and the stars the scattered white teeth of the gods, which spare none of us. At dawn, I have birds, clearly divine messengers that don't understand, yet day by day feel the grace of their intentions. Jim Harrison. We started this whole thing with Jim Harrison way back, a couple, 3 years ago. Hard Times, this is called. The other boot doesn't drop from heaven. I've made this path and nobody else, leading crookedly up through the pasture where I'll never reach the top of Antelope Butte. It is here where my mind begins to learn my heart's language on this endless, wobbly path, veering south and north, informed by all too vivid dreams, which are a compass without a needle. Today the gods speak in drunk talk, pulling at a heart too old for this walk, a cold, windy day kneeling at the mouth of the snake den where they killed 800 rattlers. Moving higher with my thumping chest, recites the names of a dozen friends who have died in recent years, names now incomprehensible as the mountains across the river far behind me. I'll always be walking up toward Antelope Butte. Perhaps when we die, our names are taken from us by a divine magnet and are free to flutter here and there within the bodies of birds. I'll be a simple crow who can reach the top of Antelope Butte. How we doing there, Ollie? I got this. I found this inside this book. This is a feather I picked up in Baird, Nebraska. Baird, Nebraska, near Scotts Bluff. Yeah. Tomorrow. I'm hoping to be astonished tomorrow, but I don't know what. Not the usual undiscovered bird in the cold, snowy willows, garishly green and yellow, and not my usual death, which I've done before with Borodin's music, used in Kismet, an angel singing stranger in paradise, that sort of thing. And not the 1,000 naked women running a marathon in circles around me while I swivel on a writerly chair, keeping an eye on my favorites. What could it be, this astonishment, but falling into a liquid mirror to finally understand that the purpose of Earth is Earth? It's plain as night. She's willing to sleep with us a little while. There you go. There you go, folks. That's all I got tonight. The hand is not feeling that good, so I'm going to shut this baby down. Hey, there's Katie Keenan. All right, thanks, Katie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anyway, thanks for turning out. We do this every week. I may be a little inconsistent over the holidays. Who knows? But if you watch my cover photo on my page, it'll let you know whether we're doing it or whether we're going to do it the following week or whatever. Tuesdays at 7. If it's going to happen, that's when it'll happen. So you never know what'll happen here on a Tuesday night. I've been contemplating a Treehouse concert. But that's yet to be determined. Anyway, folks, thank you for everything. Thank you for showing up. Have a poetic week, and we'll do this again soon. Good night.